So I want to welcome you to looking at iOS and Universal Design for Learning. I do have to put a plug in for the state of Minnesota. Those are lady slippers, the Minnesota state flowers. So thank you for being here today. My background comes from public school setting. I was a speech pathologist in public school, working anywhere from birth to age 21. And in the last 6 years, I have since moved over to the university at Minnesota State University, Moorhead, which is also my alma mater, and have been working out of what we call the Regional Assistive Technology Center, which is connected to the Speech Language Clinic here on campus. We have both an undergrad and graduate program here at our university for speech language pathology. I'm also connected to Region 4 in Minnesota, which is the northern region of Minnesota, where we work with public schools. I have 22 schools that we are able to be connected to, and then we do cross the river over into Fargo, North Dakota. So I welcome you and I thank you for being here today. So I want to begin with finding out a little bit more about you. It's excellent to hear all the expertise that is here today, but I have a question to ask you. I want to know what makes life accessible for you. So in order to do so, may the technology force be with me here. I'm going to take you over to Poll Everywhere. And I have a poll here, and you have two options if you would like to participate. You can either participate via the computer and type in up here pollev.com/MaryBethPlan 705, or you can text MaryBethPlan 705 to this number 37607. And my question, what I'm asking you to respond to is, what makes life accessible for you? I have a few answers that I have entered, and if you are able to type in and text either via phone or via your computer, please join me. I have another response to send in. See if I get any other answers on what makes life accessible. And maybe some of these you can relate to.
I don't know what's going on.
Is it working or not? It's working quite well for me, sorry. I'm texting. Oh, I've gotten a couple answers. Oh, thank you. Oh, excellent. I'll give it another 30 seconds. Thank you. Okay, oh, I'm seeing a few more. Excellent participation. All right. Copy, busy. Excellent. All right, thank you. I'm seeing a few more. Wow. I've learned at post-secondary, we tell do not put your cell phone away. Take it out. You might need it. Sleep. Oh, isn't that a true one? All right. I thank you for your participation. We'll be doing another poll, and I will keep this up. So I'll bring you back to the PowerPoint. So let's talk a little bit more about accessibility. We want to consider some options, just general options, and I know I'm preaching to the choir as I hear your expertise listed and as you've introduced yourself, but it's important to think about these. And again, my involvement, we're heavy in assessment here at our university, and not only do we assess here on campus, we also assess when we go out to other local community sites and settings, and we also have a medical facility that we team with when looking at augmentative alternative communication. But some important pieces to keep in mind is number one is vision. What does vision look like? And I'm not a vision expert, but again, it is a very critical component for communication. Tactile. I myself, I like to feel things, touch things, maybe before I purchase them. And again, how does someone make their tactile life accessible? Auditory. Thank goodness we are all able to hear me today. And again, that's a great accessibility piece. Looking at multimedia, How might we access it? Not only do we need to see it, but hear it, or what other options might need to be embedded when we look at something from a multimedia standpoint. And last but not least, learning considerations are very critical. And having the opportunity to be in and out of various schools and having access to kindergarten all the way up to high school, again, there are numerous considerations, and I've had to tell myself those considerations are always evolving and changing for all learners. Then I want to break it down into what does our personal accessibility look like. Even for you today connecting in via the webinar, we have learning preferences. Some of us prefer to be able to see and or hear, or maybe even just being able to hear. Those of you who we can't see, that is fine with me, but others might prefer to know who someone might be. We look at efficiency and effectiveness, and that's the one key piece about technology, or again, ranging from no tech all the way to high tech. How does it make us efficient? Sometimes when I wake up at 3 in the morning, not always by choice, I'll think of something, and maybe just a sticky note by my bedside is all I'll need to do, or depending where I'm at, a quick text message to myself is another way that keeps me efficient. We also need to look at various disability components that an individual may have, and we'll talk a little bit more about those when we get into the iOS accessibility side. Background knowledge is also a key component where we might need to have further knowledge about someone. Again, their history, their overall medical status, communication, motor, fine and gross motor components are also very critical pieces. Availability of resource. What's available here? Today when I had you do your poll, I was so hoping that, well, I know for sure they have computer access, so they should be able to access the poll that way, or is it more efficient to have your phone? I have both my phone and my iPad available to me because I will need both of those in order to be a complete participant in today's session. The other things are, what are those technology options that are available? And I had stated some that I have in front of me, but there are many more, and that's part of looking at our assistive technology pieces based off of our learning preferences and motivation and interest. What might those pieces look like? And last but not least, as I also stated, we need to look at that range all the way from no tech to high tech options. What is available and what will work best based off of the environment, our needs, and what we choose to and need to accomplish. When we look at the accessibility, moving over to the iOS side, there are some days it's been the piece that has either been the make or break of an evaluation or even the make or break of a therapy session that we do. My caseload currently consists of augmentative alternative communicators, those who are on the spectrum, autism spectrum disorder, and those who have traumatic brain injury. And there again, these are critical components for me to use as far as accessibility when I'm evaluating and again when I'm doing intervention. I probably, again, you're all very familiar with when we go into accessibility on the iOS side, beginning with general and then tapping into accessible. There's a couple key features that I want to point out to you, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with these, but how do they apply to either intervention and or assessment that I'll share with you next. Number one, of course, speech is very critical in my world, and again, for those who don't have that voice, what might that speech component be under accessibility? As you've noticed, I would love to switch over to my iPad, but I was found out that I'm not able to do so, so I don't quite have that dynamic component that I would like to share, but I've been able to get a few snapshots just to give you some gentle reminders of what's available for accessibility on the iOS. Number one, we have speech. And again, looking at speak selection, we're able to have a button speak when you select text. There's also the being able to have speak the screen. I do use that when I tap my screen when I'm using my phone because again, sometimes I might be sometimes I have to confess when traveling in a vehicle, waiting, we have numerous trains in this lovely city of Moorhead, so I might use my phone at that time. Notice that we can change the rate of speaking. And I recently had to do that during an evaluation with a young individual who I was informed had excellent auditory comprehension. And as the val began to proceed, we were using some things that looked at text-to-speech, and one of those I'll share with you in a few moments here. But again, the rate was way too fast. So going back in, changing that speaking rate was kind of that aha moment that could have been the make or break of having a better understanding of what the individual was capable of comprehending. Another area is text size. And I have to confess, I'm truly a candidate for text size. Not that I don't mind making things accessible for myself, but again, knowing that we can have larger accessibility of size of text. We can drag the slider back and forth as we choose. And again, some things are bigger, some things might be smaller, depending on what would best suit our vision at that time and setting. One of my favorite ones is the invert colors. Most recently used this with a little person dealing with cortical vision impairment. Began our evaluation, so excited to be using an application with voice output, and the child looked, and right then and there, the occupational therapist who was part of the team said, invert the colors. It was kind of like that aha moment. Once we had inverted the colors, the child was able to see the icons, what we were looking at, and again, became a very exciting evaluation. Had we not had that opportunity to do that, again, our data would not have been valid of what this child might have been or was capable of doing. Keyboard has been a huge piece for me. As again, I deal with fine motor motoric issues, and again, being able to show a lowercase keyboard I've used with children, but others some hardwire keyboards. I have downloaded several keyboards myself that I use for accessibility on my iPad, and again, during evaluations for children for writing, for spelling, for using word prediction. Again, many numerous opportunities we have via the iPad. Closed captioning, I personally have not used closed captioning on my iPad other than when I may pull up. My favorite one is Camtasia, and I'm hoping there'll be an app for that someday in the near future. But again, it states that when available, preferred closed captioning is available for individuals. Notice that under style, you're able to have a large text size if also needed. Switch control is one that I use quite extensively as we use a Bluetooth switch with our iPads for children who have needing switch, either one switch or two switch. And again, I have been very impressed due to some recent changes with the updates in the iPad. It also has been a very time efficient, and again, learning more about what a child's preferences are, learning about their understanding and comprehension of tasks. So one that I highly use quite often. Hearing access, this one I just started to come across as I've had a couple individuals who have had hearing issues. The other thing we have used in addition that we're able to connect with someone's hearing aids, I've only had one instance, is the other piece that we've added is a iPad speaker set where we've been able to add speaker to amplify auditory. Guided access. I have to say when guided access came out, it was my saving grace. Not that I have to have control of everything going on during an assessment or when a child is using an iPad intervention, but sometimes the home button becomes the highlight of accessing on the iPad. And maybe I'm not quite ready to move on to the next application. Being able to lock one into an app or being able to not have access to all the buttons within an app can truly make a difference in our data collection. Also being able to see time on task, being able to have that child indicate that they're ready to make a change or they're ready to discontinue something in a communicative standpoint versus the home button becoming the one in charge. So again, guided access has just been priceless. Notice that again you can have a passcode setting. There's you can set time limits if you want to, and there's also the accessibility shortcut of the 3 hits of being able to get in and out, which I think we use extensively, I know, at our clinic, and quite often in assessments. So we want to keep in mind that accessibility is one part of universal design for learning. When we talk about universal design for learning, we want to keep in mind that it's designing for all learners. It's being able to walk into that classroom, and it's not truly that one size fits all, that there are three driving forces behind universal design. And gentle reminder, I know we talked about these last week, but I have them in an order that I think has recently been reassigned or realigned by CAS, the Center for Applied Special Technologies. Number one, looking at multiple means of engagement. And when I see that, I think first and foremost, whether I'm doing an assessment or whether I'm being part of a intervention or just meeting someone, or better yet, being a grandparent and babysitting grandchildren, I need to find out what are those motivators? What are those pieces that have that, aha, this is of high interest and I want to stay with it. I have an interest. And again, we bring in personal preferences into mind. We bring in background knowledge when we look at motivation and engagement. And most of all, we think about what keeps this individual connected to be part of this with me. The second one is multiple means of representation. And as I shared with you, looking at the accessibility of the iPad, it truly is reflective of those multiple means of representation. What we see, what we hear, what involves tactile, what again, combining those senses, and how does that engage to someone to be part of that activity of what's going on. And last but not least, probably my most preferred, is looking at language in action. And again, how do we get that communication and how do we create movement and activity and that buy-in again, where that child or that young adult or that adult, mature adult, may need to be, will want to be part of an activity because number one, they have the access to the language they need and they have the access to the movement that allows them to be part of that. And again, as I shared earlier about the switch access, how exciting to see an individual being able to take part, be in control of a literacy, or be in control of a paintbrush, or be in control of music. Those are all creating ownership and that buy-in, which leads to, again, our top one, that engagement piece, which is critical to all learners. So, I want to share with you in that app making decision. Yes, I love to look at apps and I love to purchase apps, but I don't know about you, I don't have a wealth of budget available to me. So I have to make sure that I'm making good decisions about what apps that look from a universal design for learning perspective. So I'm going to share with you from my webpage a few examples of some apps about evaluating apps. About 5 years ago, I came across a gentleman, and I'm sure some of you may be familiar with him. As you see his name here, in 2010, Harry Walker developed a rubric. I use that rubric religiously. From there, and I'm going to scroll down, Tony Vincent took that and expanded upon Harry Walker's rubric. And I want you to see, it's part of my PowerPoint, but I want to enlarge it here briefly, where he took, and again, I feel this aligns very nicely when we're looking at universal design for learning, some key factors. Number one, is it relevant? Can we customize it? I really think it's important because, again, that indicates learner preference, and truly, it's not a one-size-fits-all. The other one is, does it allow the student, young adult, or teen, or whoever, be able to give feedback for what they're doing? Does it intrigue those thinking skills? And when I talk about thinking skills, I often think of Bloom's taxonomy. Does it allow for that higher order of learning? Is it usability? I have to say, if there's an app that I'm using and it takes me more than 5 to 10 minutes, I'm not sure if I want to continue with this app. The next one is looking at engagement, how critical that is. And the last one that Harry Walker did not have included in his was, does it allow one to share? Right now at our university clinic, we're involved with telepractice. And I can't get over that when working with telepractice, children always say, can you send it? Can I have it? Can I see it? And again, finding apps that allow us to be able to either email, share, or through the cloud, again, is a very critical component. So I do commend Tony Vincent for this excellent rubric. Another one I want to share with you is a kid one, and it's called the Great App Checklist. And I have used this with some of the students here, some of the children that come to our clinic, and notice about the accessibility, the components here. Number one, does it have a purpose? You know, I'll say to kids, why would we use this? Oh, I could learn how to be a better friend using this, or I could write a story about someone. Privacy, does it have privacy policy? Working at a clinic, we're HIPAA protected, and the same when we're looking at schools. What does that privacy look like? Alignment, does it align with our content standards? And again, how does it relate to our curriculum? We look at that pedagogical base. Does it give feedback? Again, as I stated, the higher order thinking. App citizenship, is it price reasonable, free? I have found that if I've contacted some developers, they've allowed me to have a free trial for a period of time, or maybe they have allowed me as the Regional Assistive Technology Center that we could share it, demonstrate it, and use it for a period of time, or sometimes an extended period of time. The other one that I like is that personalization, because again, that's another engagement piece where children will think it's got my name in it, or I can customize it for me, or this is truly reflective of who I am. Access, again, as we stated as I went through looking at the iOS accessibility features demonstrated there. And the other one that I like that they've included is accommodating those English language learners. Quite often I have worked in conjunction with the ELL students, and again, what does that language piece look like? And here again, that common response of shared. Can it be shared? And we need to keep that in mind because we now have those accessible tools in order to be able to share those things. My last one I want to share with you is called an eSkills app, and it comes from eSkills Learning. I use this site quite often, and again, it addresses the Common Core standards, and I'm going to not dwell too long on this one, but I like the last component down here at the bottom is when it talks about various modes of play. And today as I've done those polls, we can either have computer, we could have had tablet, we could have had phone, and again, it didn't matter what platform you were on. So again, I just wanted to share with you a few of those options to take a look at what that might look like as far as determining that overall rating. What apps do I want to purchase or include? So moving along, those are those three ordering. I need to have a Kahoot with you, if that's okay. I want to find out your use of looking at the iPad, and I have a poll here briefly that we will pull up. Kahoot, I used it last week, and I greatly appreciate your participation. What I want to find out from you is looking from UDL and iOS combined. So I'm going to put on my play. What I need you to do is go to Kahoot.it. And again, if you have a tablet, if you have a phone or computer, you'll go to Kahoot.it. And I'll launch it. Pretty soon you'll get a game pin. And I want you to, once you get to that main screen, you would enter your game pin. So again, you're at Kahoot.it and you'll get game pin. I already see Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. 10582, you'll enter and then give yourself a nickname and join in. All right, you should be able to see your name on the screen, I hope, coming up. I see 11 players. I'm going to move my screen over so I can put it into play. All right, you will have 30 seconds. You have one question to ask, to respond to, and we'll see it here in just a moment. Got a few more people coming in. Thank you. All right, I will begin. Are you ready? The question is, how much time during the day do you spend on an iPad, iPhone, Red, is throughout your entire day, morning, noon, and night. Blue, daytime hours only. Yellow, only as needed. Or green, I don't access an iOS device. Please indicate your vote. Everyone is in. Oh, wow. So I see 8 of you entire day. Yes, I need my phone to wake me up in the morning so I get to work on time. I see only as needed, and I see 2 who don't access iOS, and that's fine. Thank you for your participation. So again, as we continue on, I have a few apps that I want to share with you today, and I've categorized them based off of the principles of universal design for learning. And I have to confess, these are tried and true with children all the way from kindergarten up to 12th grade. And so again, I'm going to mention a couple of these. I've listed pricing. You cannot hold me to pricing because prices do change, and I will share with you some resources where once in a while you can get something free that you wouldn't have to spend money for. So I'll share those here toward the end. So the one app that I want to show you that's probably been one of our most motivating apps, and again, comes from multiple means, is called Story Creator. And I'm going to play just a little bit of a clip so you can see how it operates. Story Creator can be free. And here we have a short story taken from Minnesota, from the lake. I'll let you listen to this so you can see.
Welcome to Toad Lake. Here is a place to run and play.
It allows you to bring in video. You can bring in photo. Your text, you can adjust the size.
It is also a great place to go fishing.
You can have text highlighted if you want.
Join us in the boat for a lake adventure.
And again, you can use text to speech. You can enlarge the screen, as you see I've done here. And yes, those are authentic fishing dogs from Minnesota. Story Creator. Again, many ways of multiple means of representation. Looking over to the language and action side, there are some of my favorite ones. One that I cannot say enough about, and we've been using quite extensively in telepractice, is Mad Libs. You may be familiar from the website, but it has a phenomenal app, and again, it is a perfect example of universal design for learning. The other one that I want to share with you is Mad Libs. Let me just give you a quick review so you can see it. You can create a variety of stories. You don't have to have the music if you don't want to. You can turn that off. And I'll show you what it looks like from a UDL perspective. Parts of speech. You can slide the face over. Some word options. If you don't want the words, you can have some quick examples and get a description of what that part of speech is about. And choose one there. And so as the story continues, adding the words, you will finally end up with an overall story that looks like this. And so I won't read it to you, but again, the student has had that ownership of writing a story, but has only had to put in words if at that comfort level. I've had students take this and say, now I'm going to write my own story from another perspective. So again, it's been a very motivating but a very rich language app. The other one that we have used quite extensively is called iReadWrite. It is the iOS side of using text-to-speech from TextHelp. I have found this extremely motivating starting at the middle school age. It is $19.99, and I have to say it's probably one of the best $20 I've spent. This is iReadWrite from TextHelp. And here students are able to go in, access a Word document, and here you can read what I have written about living in Moorhead, Minnesota. One is able to quite easily set up.
Please enter a title for your new document.
You get the auditory cue. You're able to create. And as one begins keyboarding, you can have access to word prediction on the left-hand side. If you're not sure, you can tap on the word, hear it. If you want it,
like,
tap again. Not only
to,
does it predict for spelling, but also for grammatical.
go, out, for, dinner, this, evening.
And again, one can hear their entire sentence to play back.
I would like to go out for dinner this evening.
Highlighting color and
Spell checking.
can be adjusted. Notice that we do spell checking. We can also see our homophones.
Writing.
And again, a very user-friendly app. I can take away the word prediction. I've only had one child who has said, please take away the prediction. So as I wrap up, I want you to take a look at from the engagement perspective, and I have to say these are just some of the highlighted ones, but it never fails whether I'm with children or adults. The top one is AutoWrap, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. I'm going to move ahead to that one right here, and I'll briefly play an example, creating your own lyrics at no cost. AutoWrap, and again, students are able to do vocabulary words, maybe their spelling words, record them. You tap talk. I'm speaking in words. I apologize that you don't hear them right now, but you will in just a moment. So you didn't know I was a rapper, did you? No, I'm really not. So again, one of our probably top preferred ones. As I shared with you before, I have some resources that I have found very helpful. Number one, cost efficient. App Advice, App Buyers, App Statics, App Start have all been very friendly. I have a Pinterest page, MVP, SLP, that I use quite extensively. I also have a PB Works site. I'm always open how to better organize my electronic resources, but on the MVP SLP iPad is a specific listing I have of the accessible components from the iPad that are there available to you. If you have to request access, please do so, and I will give you access to the PB Works site that I use quite often. So just some general components. As we know, the new iOS 9 features have been phenomenal. And again, you'll be able to see these. My most preferred one right now on the Air 2 is the slide over and split view. It's nice to be able to do an email, be in the internet, or do a PowerPoint at the same time being able to research information. I love that one immensely. The other one is being able to use Google Drive, OneDrive, and Dropbox to upload to the iPad menu has also been, again, one of those time efficient and I feel a very UDL accessible feature tool. So I want to briefly wrap up here with one more site before we go. It only takes 20 seconds, I promise, and I'm sure some of you have seen this before.
Emma. Emma. Emma.
I guess he needs to know universal design for learning. So I thank you for participating today. I want to close the picture from our university. This was yesterday. Today we've had amazing winds and very few leaves are left. So thank you so much for your time.